So I want to introduce you to two of my very dear friends. Mr. Rashidi on the left is from Afghanistan originally and is now living in Gouda in the Netherlands. And because he left Afghanistan a year ago, September, when the government fell, and we'll talk about that next week a little bit. And Basim is in Iraq. Is currently in. Are you in Erbil right now, Basim? Are you?
No, I'm in Baghdad.
He's in Baghdad, and Basim is our Iraq program coordinator in Iraq, or for Iraq, and Rashidi is one of our program coordinators for Afghanistan. And both are dear friends. Both have very big stories that we will talk about. Today we're having a very different kind of class. I want to make a case for breaking through our barriers and understanding, reaching out in a different way to the world. And I want to make a case for that, for thinking and being thinking sociologically in the way that I do, in the way that many of us do, and make a case for how the strange and the unknown is also really the fantastical, the fascinating, the interesting part, so many interesting pieces of life. So maybe we can just start with, Basim, just kind of start with you and say a few words about what, as the Iraq program coordinator, why and how are these dialogues, these conversations with these students, why are they so valuable for students in Iraq? What is it about that?
Well, Sam, the title of your lecture, World Bridging, is really the best title you can put to describe what a global dialogue is. We started the global dialogues in Iraq in 2018. We started in Mosul just after Mosul was liberated from ISIS in 2017. And the students at the University of Mosul, they just wanted to tell the world what had happened to them. So they just opened up, and throughout the semester, all they could talk about was ISIS, what ISIS did to them, how they lost 3 years of their lives, they lost 3 years of their education, how they lost loved ones. So there's 2 points that I would like to really mention really quickly. The global dialogue is a learning process for you, for our students. As you learn about each other's culture, religion, daily life, what makes you happy, what makes you sad, what's the daily suffering for each side, for your part or for our part. Believe me, most of our students, they know a lot about the United States because it's an important country, it's a big country. And you probably, I will guess that there are some people in this room, they know nothing about Iraq. So it's your opportunity to learn, ask questions, and do not hesitate to ask any question that comes to your mind.
In the students who are coming to the dialogues, this isn't, it's not a chore for them, right? It's not just an assignment. For them, it's really something unique and special.
It's something unique. They practice their English. They ask questions that they have no answers from TV or Netflix or whatever they watch. It's an opportunity for our students to bring their voice outside of the country, and it's the best opportunity for them.
Yeah, it's really so. So Lori and I were in Iraq visiting Basim and talking to a lot of the students, and it's so valuable. I mean, I remember Basim just speaking with people about how just happy they were to have this opportunity, and for you all, the opportunity. The United States was at war in Iraq. I mean, we lost. Millions of people died in 2 different wars. And many of you I know have family members who were part of that. And here's, your opportunity to just really touch some people in this other country and understand a little bit. So, Mr. Rashidi,
Yes.
how about you? It's the young people in Afghanistan.
Yes, it's pretty. Let me tell you at first my experience, what I have achieved from this dialogues. Yeah, when I came to the Netherlands, I could just encounter with the people differently. Yeah, because I know I can respect everyone with their differences, and I love them. I can love them. Yeah, I learned this from wooden conversation. I want the Afghan people to meet a real person in the United States and to know how kind and to see the differences and to see the similarities. Yes, what is real? Yeah, not in the news, not in the media. Yes, it is pretty interesting, and it's good to see each other and experience new thing and bridge something. Yeah, before in Afghanistan, yeah, they taught, yeah, always, yeah, the American action movies in the United States, but when we talk to the people in person, yes, we love each other, we see the differences and how the human in Afghanistan, the civilians in Afghanistan and in the US, how they're similar to each other. Yeah, it was a pretty good experience, and it's good for the Afghan people. Nowadays, it's a pretty tough situation in Afghanistan. Yeah, it's a good opportunity for Afghan people to talk to people out of Afghanistan. And yes, it's good for them.
So much of what you, Mr. Rashidi, are about and what you just said is really building these bridges between people in different sides of the world who seem like they have nothing in common with one another. But what you see when they engage in these conversations is people really, they share so many things and so many hopes and dreams, and they can laugh and they can talk and they can do all sorts of, just have this connection, right?
Yeah, and also they can see the world from the eye of another person. Yes, they experience, yes, the people who are sitting in front of them and how they see the world, and they can see it and they can experience different culture, different ideas, and also the similarities and differences. Yes, it's pretty. And after the dialogues, you will know we can, beside any differences we have, we can love each other.
Yeah. Dude. So if you didn't catch that, Mr. Rashidi said you can love each other. Meaning you can meet these Afghan students and love them. And
can I say, sorry, yeah, we are so far from each other. What the media says, so in some places of the world they burn Quran, and in some places the far right just say something, and also the other side, more extremist Muslims are doing something. Yeah, pretty just we divide us to really far from each other. When you're talking to each other, you see that we don't have so many differences, and we can laugh each other. Yeah, there is no difference.
And when I was 21, I had to take a Spanish class. I had to take a whole year of Spanish. It's just part of being a sociology major. I had to take this Spanish class, and I had taken a year of Spanish in high school, but I didn't remember anything except I don't even think I could count to 3, let alone to 20. And lo and behold, the woman who taught my class came in and refused to say even a single word in English. Just said she refused. And I said, and at first I was like, oh my God, what is this? She was trying to get someone to turn the lights on and everything in Spanish. We didn't understand anything. By the end of that day, I had spoken in the class. I had spoken Spanish because she made us speak and she made us talk to one another. And in speaking to other people, I realized I heard a voice. I heard something. come out of me in another language. And I realized that the boundary, that fear and the concern and saying the wrong thing or being laughed at or whatever it would be, it went away. It wasn't there. And I left saying like, oh shit, I could learn Spanish. Like, I really could learn Spanish. And so I started. And then I studied it for 9 months, and then I went to study at the University of Madrid, which was really bold because I couldn't do it after 9 months. That was terrible, right? But I didn't care. I left the airport, I got into a taxi, and I got into a taxi with some other Americans who had been studying Spanish and for, in one case 6 years, in another case 4 years, in another case like 5 years, and they all were afraid to speak. And I had been studying for 9 months, and I had a whole summer off, and I was rusty, and I didn't understand anything. And the taxi driver said, "Where are you going?" And I went, "No one else would speak." And I went, "All right, well, here's where we're going." And I said it. And the guy turned around and he said, "Okay." And I went, "Holy shit, it works." You know what I mean? Like, I'm in Spain. I just told the taxi driver where we're going in Spanish, and we're going there. And then I started asking him questions like, "Hey, how's the weather? How you doing?" Just very basic stuff. And the guy's responding. And I didn't understand much of what he was saying because he was, talking fast. And I thought, it was so exciting. I'm going down the road going, oh my God, I'm in this other culture. I'm in this place. I'm going to learn Spanish. And I will never forget the feeling that I had. And at that moment, in that time, by the time the day ended, because then I went and I explored the city on my own and so on, I said, this is my life. This is my life. I am going to spend, I'm not going to have kids. I'm not going to spend money on all sorts of, this didn't come in that moment, but it came pretty quickly after that. I'm not going to spend money on things that I really don't need. I'm just going to travel, and I'm going to meet people. And so I embarked on this life, this just about meeting people and engaging people. And then ultimately in this, so I don't know how many, maybe I've been to about 50 countries or so, but many of them like many, many times, like, 8, 9, 10 times, that kind of thing, right? But these two gentlemen right here are two of the human beings who I have met along the way. And now we work together. And when you hear their stories, because you're going to hear Mr. Rashidi's story next week. You're going to read about Basim's story, and then we'll invite him back into class. But Basim, I don't want to say, the Basim is, man, Basim, I don't know. Like this man here is what he's been, who he is. He spoke once, and he used to speak in class like this. He'd tell his story. And then he came to 119 once after the accident. We'll just call it the accident, okay? He came to 119, and he spoke he zoomed in. And at the end of that, the class said, "We got to get this guy here." And so I said, "All right, let's do it." And so right there, we collected money and we raised $3,000, just like that. That's who this guy is. Class just say, "Yeah, here we go, $3,000." Boom. Said, "Okay, you're coming. Let's go. Let's get your visa. Let's make it happen." And then he came and spoke in this class, and he's been here a couple different times. But like, he is. You will, when you hear his story, if you have a chance, you will. There aren't many Basims in the world. There are not many Basims in the world. You will be hard pressed to find another human being like this. And I get to call him my friend. And I get to call him my friend because I decided when I was young, the age of most of you in this room, that I was going to meet people all over the world. And I was going to connect with human beings. It didn't matter who they were. They could be Muslims like these two gentlemen, one from Iraq, one from Afghanistan. It doesn't matter. But I was going to meet people. And I was going to be shaped and changed and transformed by that. Mr. Rashidi is, I introduce him as the kindest, most gentle, most soulful human being who I have ever met in my life. And trust me, I have met human beings all over the world, but I've never met someone as kind and loving. You heard what he said. It's like, we're bringing together these groups so you can love one another. It's like, why not love Afghans? Why not have Afghans love Americans? Like, why not do that? And Basim is, I don't know if the wisest, most forgiving human being who I have ever met in my life. No one even comes close to this man. And I get to call them my friends. And today's class is a class to just show and demonstrate the kinds of things that we as human beings are capable of. And so the pitch for you to when you go into these global dialogues, you don't know what could change your life. Like, we have students who meet in these global dialogues. They then continue friendships. And I talked to a student the other day who's Basim. This is who wants to come over to Iraq because their friend is in Iraq, the friend who they met on the screen in here, and they want to go meet them. And you can go to Iraq. Basim, how safe is Iraq?
It's safe. I mean, you were here, you came, you saw what it's like, and it's much safer right now than 2018. And we had the Gulf soccer tournament in Basra, and nobody has come to Iraq since 1991 from all the Gulf countries, and everybody came, and you can hear their testimonies about how safe Iraq is.
Yeah. You know, the thing is, the most dangerous part of our trip in Iraq, I'm going to say this, and then the most dangerous part of my trip in Iraq was visiting Basim's mother, because she cooked such a big table of food, and because I'm his friend, and Lori and I refused, when we said we were full, it was just like, that's not possible, and just refused to hear it, and just kept. And this guy here stopped eating early on, and we just had to keep eating. That was by far, I think that was the most dangerous part of the trip, actually, to be honest. So I'm saying, these things about connecting. I don't think that people have to travel around the world, right? I don't think that's really necessary that we do that. I decided that was going to be the life for me because I'm a sociologist and really in many ways an anthropologist, and that's just what I do. But we live in a global world, and connecting is essential. And as the world gets smaller, and we have more and more military weapons and more people struggling to define borders and boundaries and cultures, and more populist leaders and people in populations succumbing to the populist leaders who are very quick to create us and them scenarios. We're the good people, and they are the bad people. Watch out for them, we're okay. And missing the idea that we're largely all the same. And when I say we're largely all the same, I'm saying that as someone who visits people in places that most people don't visit, and speak to people that most people don't speak with, and have a kind of an understanding. And so the pitch for me is always, life is like, I went to, the first time I was in Israel, and I was staying in an Orthodox Jewish household, and I wore a kippah, I wore a yarmulke, the whole, it was like I followed everything, like those of you who understand Orthodox Judaism. And they said, listen, whatever you do, don't go to the Arab quarters, because it's really dangerous for you. And I was with my friend who was actually a former student of mine who was Jewish. This was a long time ago. And he wore a Star of David. And so, we left and we're like, well, where's the first place we went to? The Arab quarters. It's because, of course, right? And once again, of course, because I knew Arabs. And I knew the Middle East and I knew the Muslim world. And so I'm like, okay. So we go to we were walking through the Arab quarters and we go into the shop. And we walk in and the guy sees my friend's Star of David. And he says, are you Jewish? And he says, yeah, I'm Jewish. He says, oh, you're Jewish. He said, oh, come. And he takes us in the back room. He says, you come in the back. And he pulls 2 chairs out and he says, sit down. Right? And he tells his wife or partner or somebody to bring something. So they brought food and tea and everything. He's like, he said, I've never had a Jew in my shop. And I'm like, oh my God. Then he goes out on the street. He's like, Abdul, Mohammed, hey, Abdul, have I got a Jew in here? Right? And they all come down and they're like, to meet my friend. And they're like, okay, when you're done, you got to come to our shop. And now we're thinking like, oh, hang on, we're told this is dangerous for us. And I'm like thinking it's dangerous in the way that eating at the kitchen table of Basim's mother was dangerous. Because these guys are not going to let us leave without drinking tea and having cakes at each one of their shops. And then we go to the West Bank. Because like, okay, well, whatever you do, you don't go to the West Bank because that's really dangerous. It's like, well, of course we're going to go to the West Bank, right? And the Arabs are saying, oh, but be careful of the Jews because the Jews hate us. But we're staying with an Orthodox Jewish family, the very people who they think hate them the most. And we're saying, well, they don't really hate you. They're afraid, just like you're afraid. Everybody's afraid. And so for me, these are the kinds of experiences that so much have defined my life and the kinds of experiences that we try to bring into Social 118. Can I just show you, can you go to the next slide? So like these are all where you see these marks are all countries in the world where we've had conversations through World in Conversation. And the next slide, this is Social 118. This goes back to May of 2018. So right at this point in time, we have video views from the videos we've made in here of between 80 and 85 million video views that we get from around the world. So who's watching? So in May of 2018, 165 countries had watched one of our videos for over an hour in the live stream. And it's like, that's pretty cool. Like every week, we get emails from people around the world who are watching what's going on in here because they're curious. I just had I got an email from this young man, high school student in Nigeria. And then last week I got an email from a young college kid who's French Moroccan. And I just had a conversation with this Korean woman up in Toronto. And we're talking and engaging all the time. And people are so fascinated by other human beings in the world. And we are trying to reproduce that in here. Because we can. Because why not? You know what I mean? Like, why not? So anyway, that's what we're doing. That's where we are.